Although the Crusaders are commonly thought to have been motivated by their deep Christian faith, crusades were actually wars inspired by avarice. At a time of utmost poverty and misery prevalent in the West, the attractions of the East, in particular, the Muslim society's wealth and prosperity, played on the minds of Europeans, especially those in the church. These attractions, bolstered with Christian teachings, begot the Crusaders' mindset, seemingly motivated by religion but actually motivated by worldly designs. This is the reason why Christians, who had followed more or less peaceful policies in the previous 1,000 years, suddenly began to display an appetite for war, specifically the liberation of the Holy City of Jerusalem and Palestine as a whole. We can retrace the beginnings of the Crusades to November 1095, when Pope Urban II gathered the Council of Clermont. 300 members of the clergy convened under his chairmanship. The pacifist doctrines that had dominated Christendom were abandoned, laying the foundations for the conquest. At the close of the council, Urban II announced this state of affairs in his famous speech to a congregation that comprised all social classes, demanding that Christians stop the infighting and warring among themselves. The Pope called on them, whether rich or poor, aristocrat or peasant, to unite under one banner and to free the Holy Land from the Muslims. To him, this was a holy war. Historians describe Urban II as a good orator. He intended to incite the Christians against Muslim Turks and Arabs, and succeeded by alleging that the Muslims were assaulting pilgrims and that Christianity's sacred places were being desecrated. Of course, none of this was true. As historians have confirmed, the Muslims were very tolerant towards Christians and Jews, whom they permitted to pray and worship. All minorities coexisting in the Holy Land benefited equally from this atmosphere of tranquility, created by the moral code of Islam. But because means of communication at the time were terribly primitive compared to today's, medieval Europeans weren't aware of this. Owing allegiance to the Vatican in Rome and conducting services in Latin, they knew little about the Eastern Orthodox Church or the Greek-speaking Byzantium, and even less about Islam. Since what the common people did know amounted to nothing more than hearsay, the Pope found it easy to excite their emotions. Urban II went on to proclaim as an encouragement that for those who participated in the crusade, all sins would be forgiven. The exuberant crowd was distributed fabric crosses to emblazon their garments, and they dispersed to spread the word of the Holy War. The overwhelming response to this call made history. In a very short period of time, a massive Crusaders' army was assembled, consisting of not only professional warriors, but also 10,000s of ordinary people. Some historians suggest that the impoverished kings of Christendom, eager to exploit the fabled riches of the East, pressurized the Pope to call a holy war. Others find an altogether different motive for Pope Urban II, suggesting that he wished to gain power and prestige for himself at the expense of a rival claiming to be Pope. But in reality, all the various kings, princes, aristocrats and others who obliged this call did so for worldly purposes. As Donald Queller of the University of Illinois put it, the French knights wanted more land. Italian merchants hoped to expand trade in Middle Eastern ports. Large numbers of poor people joined the expeditions simply to escape the hardships of their normal lives. On the way, greedy hordes murdered countless Muslims and Jews in the hope of finding gold and jewels. Among Crusaders, it was common practice to disembowel their victims in the hopes that they might have swallowed their gold and jewels to hide them. In the Fourth Crusade, their avarice reached the point where they looted Christian Constantinople, scratching gold leaf off the frescoes in the Cathedral of Hagia Sophia.